It's probably not good to start the stream off with a cough, but unfortunately I have to do that. My voice is a little bit scratchy, and we're only going to be able to go for so long tonight because I have to, finish my report. I had a not a long day today because of my job, but just a frustrating, stressful day, and unfortunately, it's not over. I got to finish a report and get that in. But for now, I thought we would do a stream on a topic that I actually wanted to do a full video on, but I decided why not just do it in a stream because this takes a lot less time than if I were to do an entire video on it. So we are going to be talking about just one example of what is a much greater issue. And I will share my screen so that you can see who we're going to be talking about. And I ask up front that you not contact this person, that you not try to finagle some sort of meeting between him and I, because as I've said in the past, I have no interest in talking with journos. If they want to, they can come to me. I have a business email. They can go through that way if they want to talk to me. But otherwise, I'm not going to bother because every single interaction that I've ever had with a journalist has been just nothing but a waste of my fucking time. Every single one. So don't contact this person. Don't subtweet me and ask me to talk to them. Don't do any of it. All right? And I don't know if I have to start taking steps, but I said it the last time when we were talking about a journalist and people did it anyways, and it kind of irritated me because nothing came of it. All right. So we are going to be talking about Will Ripley, who is a international correspondent for CNN located in Tokyo. He's based in Tokyo. He didn't start there, obviously, because he is white. And so I thought we would go through a little bit of the history of Will Ripley, where he started, what he was talking about when he started, and what he's talking about now, and the consequences of his reporting. And that it's not just him. It's not, this guy is being any kind of figurehead of bad journalists, but he is just another journo, for lack of a better way to put it. He is a dishonest scumbag that is likely making close to six figures, if not more at this point, because he's been there for quite a while, making six figures a year, lying for a living, propagandizing for a living. So we're going to get through that. Okay, let me just, I guess I'll keep these things up. Okay, so I found a while ago a blog by Will Ripley himself where he talks about himself and goes into, there's not many posts here, but I think he had a blog before this, but he deleted it. But this is what I came across when he used to have this blog. And I did find a link to another account that I think had his Twitter in it. So I'm pretty confident that this is his blog. So let's read this. Will Ripley co-anchors News Channel 5 this morning and reports for the afternoon and evening newscast. He joined News Channel 5 in May 2004. Will's News Channel 5 reports have earned him 2 regional Edward R. Murrow Awards. He is the first reporter since 2005 to be honored by the Texas Association of Broadcasters with the Steve Pieringer Award for Outstanding Valor in News Coverage. Will has won 5 first-place awards and 3 second-place awards from the Texas Association Press Broadcasters during his time as a co-anchor at News Channel 5 this morning. He won a Lone Star Emmy Award for being for Best Morning Newscast. Will's reporting has also been recognized with 2 Lone Star Emmy nominations. I assume that's a Texas-based thing. Before moving to the Rio Grande Valley, Will was a weekend news anchor and reporter for CBS affiliate KRCG-TV in Jefferson City, Missouri. He also was a reporter for NBC affiliate KOMU-TV in Columbia, Missouri, Will got hooked on broadcast news while still in high school. He was an intern and student news reporter for Fox affiliate WTIC TV in Hartford, Connecticut. So he's been all over the place. He also did freelance on-camera work for the Weather Channel and served as news director of his high school's television station MHS-TV. In college, Will also got a taste of print journalism. He was a reporter and photographer for the Columbia Missourian and Vox magazine in Columbia, Missouri. Will is proud to call himself a Mizzou Tiger. He has a bachelor's of journalism degree from the University of Missouri Columbia School of Journalism. He graduated from Manchester High School in Manchester, Connecticut. So he's originally from Connecticut, but moved out west to work in journalism. And when he's not working, you can find him at the gym, at the movies, or at home asleep. If you have any tips, feel free, and he will to send it to him, and he'll keep you confidential. So this is a guy that spent the good part of his life as a young adult, as a teenager into adulthood, trying to get into journalism. He moved halfway across the country to work out west as a journalist. And one of the things he reported on were the drug cartels. And it's funny that I know that in the recent Tom Clancy game, the one set in Bolivia, that the name is escaping me, Wildlands, that the notion of Santa Muerte, which is the saint that they worship in that game, that's actually based on something real from an actual cartel. And he wrote about it. He's actually done reporting on the drug cartels while out west. So he actually did cover real issues while working out west on the ground, on the beat. He was a real journalist. He really was out there putting his life at risk because it is dangerous to report on the cartels. But he did it anyways. So he's not a pussy. He was out there breaking stories. He was out there doing news. He was out there being a journalist. So, as the story goes, as you all imagine, what happened? What happened to him? The answer is that in, I believe, February of 2014, CNN headhunted him and brought him on to work out of Tokyo in Japan, obviously. He apparently is fluent in Japanese, and that was one of the reasons why he got picked up. But I can't confirm this. But I also believe that his boyfriend is Japanese, I believe, or Asian. I believe that's the case. I can't be sure. Maybe the people, he's talked about it now, but he is apparently, from what I've seen, in the closet. He is gay. And this is one of the moves that he made, and I believe that his boyfriend went with him. And I believe his boyfriend to be either Japanese or Asian. So he got headhunted from CNN, and he was placed in Tokyo as a senior correspondent there. So then the question becomes, well, you have a guy that is a legitimate journalist from what I can find. He's writing on his own blog. He's won many, many awards. We don't know whether they mean shit or anything. But from what I've seen, he is a journalist. That's what he was for years. So what happens the second he touches down in Tokyo to become a CNN journalist? Well, as you all can likely guess, he becomes a fucking hack. A full-blown, dishonest fucking hack. What happens? What does he start reporting on? Spectacle. And he hasn't stopped. This is just from the beginning of the month. Spectacle. Multiple reports on this bullshit story about some fucking Korean woman, some crying bullshit that you see in the evening news from local stations that I can't stand. I fucking hate those stories. LGBT issues infinitely just never, ever stops. And this is just from literally yesterday. Never stops talking about LGBT issues in Japan. And as you can see by what's said here, that while Japan lags behind much of the West on LGBT issues, LGBT celebrities are still very popular, blah, blah, blah. this is one of his main things that he talks about while in Japan. And I have seen multiple reports from him that are absolutely remorseless and in just displaying Japan as backwards, as a backwards fucking culture for this reason, that gay marriage is not legal in Japan, that there is some stigma with gays in with older people, and that in Japan, he consistently makes this an issue about his reporting. And celebrity bullshit. Now, I actually wanted to do another video where I talk about this issue because it's actually relevant as it relates to this issue of this fairly beautiful princess in Tokyo, or well, actually in Japan. I don't know if she's in Tokyo. I assume she is. Getting married to some guy, and once you do that, you lose the status of royalty in Japan from the imperial family or whatever. And if you are a male, you are still in the position of potentially assuming the ceremonial throne, so to say, because while they still have that imperial system in Japan, they have a constitution, and it's not really, contingent on what the imperium or whatever does, as far as I know. So it's pretty much all for show. And this story I saw reported everywhere. Time, New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, everywhere. I saw this topic right here, this story about this princess. I saw this reported everywhere. And every single story asked the exact same question. Why is it that the female members of the family must forgo their title if they decide to get married? That's wrong. That's misogynist. That's backwards. They shouldn't do that. They should change that. And every single article that I've read has held that perspective, including Will, who holds that exact same perspective. The issue is that this is a clear sign of disrespect towards Japanese culture. This is something that is part of their heritage. This is something that goes far back, far before America was, or Americans were ever in Japan. This was still there. And for an American or anyone else from the West to just dismiss this out of hand is incredibly disrespectful to their culture. Now, the issue is not being dismissive of a foreign culture. If you want to say, fuck Japanese culture, it's backwards, fine. My issue is moral relativism and cultural relativism, where you pick and choose what is right, what is wrong, and then you become a flaming fucking hypocrite. Because as we see incessantly in the West, we are enacting, maybe not in America just yet, but all over the West, we are enacting hate speech laws for the sake of protecting Muslims from any form of criticism whatsoever, for their backwards, barbaric, just un-Western culture, for their religion, for the baggage that they're bringing over to our shores, the child rape, the incest, the misogyny, all of it. These same people are trying in every way that they can, legally or otherwise, to protect these backwards people from any form of criticism. Please shut up. My fucking towers has a fan issue. I gotta get that fixed. So all I want is some level of consistency. That's all I want. That's all I demand of people like Will Ripley, is some amount of consistency. That if we're going to say misogyny, we should focus rather on this issue that is, this is a woman choosing for herself to marry another guy and then lose this meaningless fucking title. It's meaningless. She'll never take the throne anyways, so who cares? What does it matter? And what does the throne even represent there? What does it matter to be emperor in Japan? What does it matter? What power does that position actually hold? To my knowledge, it's far less than in the UK or in England with the Queen. The Queen actually does have some power. But as far as I know, the emperor doesn't. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's from what I've read. That's how the way things are there. So this is a sign of hackery, an immediate sign of hackery. Before we get to the rest of it, is not holding to the same standard as it relates to these issues. Because I could go and find a tweet about Will's opinion on Islam. It's not going to be any different than the rest. That's their culture. Who are you to judge? You're probably a fucking racist, Tommy Robinson, or any of you people that listen to this that like him or, have opinions similar to his. You're probably a fucking racist. But as it relates to the Japanese, you can shit on them. You can shit on their religion. You can shit on their heritage. You can shit on their culture. You can shit on everything that you want to. Shit on their fucking backwards slope language. Just dump on them as much as you want. That's perfectly fine. But not Muslims whatsoever. That's the double standard that I can point to immediately, and I don't like it. So the next issue, and this ties into the next thing we're going to get to. One of the things that I've seen at a minimum 5 or 6 separate reports by Will, okay, 5 or 6 in the last few years by him, is on this. This article was not done by him, but this video right here was. This was done by Will Ripley, this video right here, and we'll get to that in a second. But this whole thing is about how in, I believe it was, 2014, Japan finally banned child porn. The only exceptions that were made were, and they already have censorship laws in Japan. There's tons of censorship laws already in Japan, but they outright ban child pornography in any way. In the what is it, current year -3, whatever, they banned it, but they made exceptions for manga, for H games, Erga games, visual novels, whatever you want to call them, and hentai. Okay, so those exceptions were made. Will Ripley and a few other people for CNN, and again, this guy lives there, made an unreal fucking report on this, where you would expect everything on the shelf to just be flat out fucking the worst kind of like lolicon rape fucking hentai. Just the most extreme vor shit you can come across. The most extreme shit that you can come across. That is what he represents as just mainstream. And he does it in deliberately deceptive ways, where it makes it look like this is some underground black market that is left open because every one of the fucking, the implications of what it is that, the people in power there are pedophiles and that they are fine with rape hentai, rape manga, all this shit. Again, the issue is, what about the rape gangs all throughout fucking Europe? When it comes to Muslims, what about the child molestation at pools and all the shit going on all throughout Europe? Where are we on the Muslims when it comes to fucking little kids? Where are we? Where are we? Nowhere. We're not talking about that. You're a racist. Be quiet. Don't talk about that. What we got to focus on is, in fact, and here's the image. See this image? See this blur? See this blur right here? So you think, oh man, this is probably some loli hentai crazy shit, fucking rape, what's going on with this? Oh wait, it's not that. Oh, it's actually not that. Oh, we have this blur here all throughout the video. Oh, this is the most extreme shit possible. Oh wait, it's not. It's actually not that. This is something that didn't need to be censored. This is the kind of shit you see with him. He's done it every single time that I've seen him report on the issue. He has deliberately misconstrued the topic that he's talking about. He has lied outright about the issue. And you got to remember that this guy used to be honest. This guy used to be an honest journalist. And yet he's going overseas telling the Japanese that they need to change. What they need to do is abide by Western progressivism, which says if we don't like it, ban it. If we don't like X, ban X right now. Do it. And so he did this kind of propaganda for years. Here's a story, an update from Will in 2015. Same shit from 2014. Next fucking year in 2015. Full year, over a year later. Still reporting on the same thing. Still saying that this needs to be banned. This needs to be stopped. This needs to be curtailed. We need to stifle these people in every way that we can to abide by our Western progressive fucking values. The Japanese need to be fucking stopped. And the way that I, Will Ripley, am going to stop them is by lying and propagandizing about what's happening. So even though, and people called them out for the bullshit in this. People called them out all the way back in 2014. Still used it anyways. Still used it anyways because he doesn't fucking care. He doesn't care what he lies about. He doesn't care about the fact that he's lying. He doesn't care about the fact that he's actually calling in favor of more censorship in Japan, despite the fact that they already have censorship laws. He's calling on more censorship. And it's because Will Ripley himself doesn't give a shit about civil liberties, doesn't give a shit about the First Amendment or free speech as a concept, does not fucking care, openly loathes it as a concept because it stands in the way of his ideological bias. This is an issue with journalists. The fact that knowingly or unknowingly, in this case probably knowingly, these people are often ideologues. It's not just having a bias. It's being ideological in your reporting. And these people almost always engage in it. And again, going back to fucking 2000 and I believe it was 12 or 2009 actually. This guy was an honest fucking person. He was a journalist. He was doing what he can to actually report the news. And yet here we go. Years later, he's a fucking hack. He's a liar. He's a propagandist. He's actively propagandizing, trying to curtail freedoms in Japan. That's his role now. And has been since fucking 2014. The issue is the fact that we are exporting propagandists. We are exporting illiberal ideologues throughout this world that, while here in the United States, try to import backwards cultures that are going to lead to the destabilization of our nations. I mean, if you just look what's going on in the UK, look what's going on in France, look what's going on, with the Danish and all the rest. Everyone, Sweden, all of them, Germany, all of them. Look at the pure destabilization of those nations. We can't criticize what's happening. You're a bigot if you say one word about what's happening. The attack that just happened in Manchester, I believe. Can't talk about that. You're a racist. We should just, stick our heads in the sand and not say a word, and that's how we're going to win this war. And while we're doing that, we're propagandizing about Asians. We're saying that they're backwards. We're saying that they're all pedophiles. The fact that they believe in artistic freedom, that's what makes them bad people. And these are journalists. Remember, this is not some fucking random blogger. This is a guy making six figures working at CNN. And he's been there since 2014. So years. Okay. So, is this okay? So yeah, I'll just say this. He was just in North Korea. So right now he's focusing mainly in North Korea. He does actually talk about news that happens in the region. But again, it's from CNN, so you can imagine what perspective they're going to take. This is actually, and the next story is what he's most known for. So he went to fucking China, warehouse exploded, and a whole bunch of people fucking died, and a whole lot more got injured. He goes to fucking China with a selfie stick and a camera, and he starts doing a live report. So he has a selfie stick, he's some white guy, and he's right outside the hospital where these people are. And people want to talk about too soon. This fucking Jagoff's out there with his selfie stick doing a live broadcast, while the family members of the victims are right outside the door, like right outside the building. They're right there as he's reporting. They're in frame. So they come across the street, and they start fucking roughing him up, saying, "Get the fuck out of here." And yeah, that's pretty much what he's most known for. Is having a bunch of Chinese fucking victims of, the family members of fucking victims in a workplace accident where 50 people died, pretty much going up to him and saying, "Hey, white guy, get the fuck out of here. Take your selfie stick, get the fuck out of here." So yeah, when people talk about too soon, the guy's pretty tasteless, all right? So then we move on. And people can say, "Well, Louis, why are you talking about this? Why bring up Will Ripley? Why does it matter? Why are you name dropping this guy? What does it matter?" That's the question people can ask, is what does it matter with this guy that you're talking about him? Is there really any end to this, Louis? Are you just here to dump on this guy as a dishonest journalist? I mean, why don't we get out the laundry list of how many fucking journalists that are working for all these mainstream networks that are just fucking propagandists? Well, here's the issue. We then move on to 2016, where the United Nations is spurred to put pressure on the Japanese government to ban hentai, ban explicit manga and hentai or anime because it is misogynist. Is pedophilic. Ban it. Not censor it a bit more. Not let's talk about the stigma it creates. Ban it. If you think this attempt at censorship to put pressure on the Japanese to censor an entire industry, multiple industries, ban it all. If you think this exists in a vacuum, you're fucking mental. You have some kind of damage. This was a very serious attempt. And the reason why it was a very serious attempt was that you had multiple releases by the Japanese government on the issue itself. That's how you know it was serious. And I'll link to an article. It was an amazing thing. I saw it when it happened at the time. I read through the transcript and everything. If I dig through those links, I'm not sure if they all work still, but it was amazing what they went through, and the Japanese provided a pretty solid defense, and it pretty much was the UN and the members of this specific committee, the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. All they did was hurl accusations to say that manga, anime, and hentai, visual novels, the rest, okay, all of it. Not even ecchi, just all of it. Okay, that it's all images of misogyny, to borrow a quote from a journalist from IGN, that this material directly leads to attacks on women all throughout the world, and that it should be banned. Banned, okay, not censored, banned. People need to understand this. Okay, this is the United Nations, a committee on it, calling for the banning of multiple industries in Japan. It doesn't get any more authoritarian than this. Not create more censorship laws, not create a quota for women in the workplace, ban entire industries because we say so. Thankfully, the Japanese said, "Fuck no, we're not fucking doing that." And they rebutted the report in the committee and showed up and just rejected it 100%. Completely flew in the face of what they were saying for. And thankfully, the Japanese in this one way didn't cuck to the West, didn't cuck to American progressives. That's where this is stemming from. This does not exist in a vacuum. This came from Marxist academics here in the United States. I'm not even going to credit the other nations in the West. It's here in the United States. That's where they came from. That's who created this issue. That's who fucking Will Ripley is virtue signaling to when he does his reports. And that is who pressured the UN, and that's who are in the UN pressuring the Japanese to do this. And the Japanese refused. And even a collection of artists and that gathered together and pretty much put pressure on their own government to refuse this thing and say, fuck no, don't do it. We refuse. We stand together. We're in favor of artistic freedom. We're not fucking fascists, so don't do this. So thankfully that happened. And, okay, well, actually, what was this? Yeah, okay, this was the refutation that these characters aren't real, so you guys are fucking nuts. Fictional characters don't have rights, and this was the creators rejecting, what the UN was proposing. So the reason for this stream, the reason for talking about Will, we'll go back to the first image about that, is that your reporting and your propagandizing has consequences. You're not just one individual out there lying for a living. What you are doing is advocating and propagandizing for the curtailment of people's freedoms in a foreign nation. No matter how long you live there, Will, in Japan, you are not Japanese. If your boyfriend's Japanese, that doesn't matter. You're not Japanese. Stop dragging your ideological bullshit to a foreign nation and propagandizing trying to make them change. If the Japanese are going to change their culture, let them do it by themselves. Stop being a cultural imperialist, because that is what you are. You are trying to, you're not even like a state actor, and you basically are a fucking foreign agent in this nation. You're lying to the Japanese public. You are propagandizing, trying to foist upon them a foreign fucking dogma for the sake of your political fucking angling. So I would support, it's not going to happen, but I would support the Japanese government deporting Will Ripley because he is a foreign agent there to propagandize. Whether he works for the United States government or not, I mean, again, it's his actions. It's what he's doing. He's lying about the nation. He's lying about industries in the nation. He's lying. He's propagandizing, and he's trying, using his propaganda, to force changes in the country. This bullshit from the UN didn't come out of the fucking ether. It didn't come out of nowhere. It mirrors his reporting. So, yes. Don't, and this is the thing, when as it relates to the Japanese, obviously I can't do anything about it, but you have to resist this. You have to resist the fact, no matter what form it comes in, you have to resist the fact that you have foreign lunatics trying to put pressure on your nation to be even more collectivist, which you don't need any more of that, okay? No more. You got enough. You're at your saturation point. Korea, to my knowledge, is worse, but just don't. You don't want to be North Korea, do you? You're in the position in this world because you actually have civil liberties in your nation, and you do have a free market in your nation. So don't do it, Japan, because you'll eventually just become North Korea, and it's not going to help you. You won't become more virtuous if you do this. So, yeah, let me double check, but I think that is, yes, I see people in the chat saying that he is a CIA nigger. That is true. I have confirmed that. I have the white papers on that. He is, in fact, a CIA nigger. So get rid of him. No, I don't have anything else, I don't think. Yeah, that appears to be it. So I will take a look to see at the chat if you guys want to talk about anything else. So yeah, chat, feel free to ask any questions or say whatever. I do have the white papers on him, so I know. Yeah, no jokes. No hate jokes. Oh, well, that's the thing. That's another. Someone just brought it up. Enlightenment Chan asks, we should deport this guy to a Muslim country. Well, that's the thing, right? You know, he's gay, and in Japan, and not having any issues, as far as I can tell. I've never seen a report to say that some Japanese guy came up to him and said, you know, go home, white fag pigu. Like, no one, that never happened there. But yeah, let's deport him to Qatar. Let's deport him to Saudi Arabia. Let's deport him to the UAE. You know, deport him to one of those nations and let's see what happens. Iran, I believe, as well. Deport him to one of those nations. Let's see what happens. You know, we'll see if you can find a fucking news report there, Will. So Mr. Cassidy 1212 asks, Lewis, do you know what is the current state of Japan's left-wing politics? I honestly don't read. I should. I know there are English websites that talk about Japanese politics. I don't really follow it. You know, I have a hard enough time following our politics in my life at this point. At some point, if my channel ever became more of a big time thing where I focused on it more, maybe that could be some angle that I do, like once a month or something. I update everybody on what news stories come out of Japan that are related to politics. I know there is actually some degree of a left-wing, right-wing divide, but it's not the same as in the West. Obviously, every nation is different in terms of left-wing versus right-wing, but as far as I can tell, the right-wing at least seems to be pretty dominated by the sort of like Bill Clinton-esque, like neoliberal kind of conservatism, that it's not really that conservative, and it's mostly focused on the economy, and it's very corporatist, very neoliberal. Shinzo Abe is the prime minister, and from what I've seen, the figurehead of it. You know, he is the Bill Clinton, in essence, of Japan, although he follows a lot of he does a lot of fucking he sort of positions himself, for lack of a better way to put it, as the Reagan of Japan. It's where Abenomics comes from. He has his whole economic policy based around the Reagan-esque kind of policy, very neoliberal and corporatist. He borrowed the name itself from it, so that's how he positions himself, and that's how I take him, from his own mouth. So we got something from the super chat from Hollering Whale. Says, "What's up, brah? Don't know what to say. Hearing some monies for your visual novel addiction." I admit to that. I haven't really played anything as of late outside of Chrono Clock, and I just bought another one that was a bit of a disappointment. I could stop broadcasting this. What was the other one I just bought? Let me look. Shit, hang on a second. Sensei Roko, whatever it is. I just bought that, I think, from Jest. I'm not liking it. I'm not liking it. I gotta say that I probably made a mistake in buying it. It's basically about Nympho Teacher. I don't like it. I'll try to finish it, or what amounts to finishing it, but I have to say that I'm not into it. Chrono Clock is a little bit better. I just haven't really carried on from where I have been with it. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I'll keep you updated on it. All right, let me scroll back down. Yes, I did finish pray. I tweeted about that. I did finish it. Okay, let me scroll back down. Shit. So Enlightenment Chan updates and asks, not a question, but what pisses me off? They all get haram or harem over underage lewd drawings, but when it comes to child marriages in Muslim countries, there's only silence. Well, that's the issue, is that you can bash Asians all fucking day, but there's a ton of fucking crazy shit as it relates to Muslims. It's not even just like shit like you throw bacon sandwiches at them and they go crazy, or they're insanely afraid of like haram shit like pig's blood. The superstitious bullshit's whatever, but it's like the fact that you have child marriage and it's a real thing. It's not a thing. You have genital cutting. You have, and it's insanely damaging. And compared to like, I don't like, I actually don't like the equivalents that people make between circumcision and female genital mutilation. The people that try to equate it. I honestly think that like the MRAs that talk about it, like I understand where they're coming from, but I just don't agree that it's equivalent. Obviously there is some issues with it, but I don't really see it as that equitable comparison. I think that it takes away from the fact that like women that are quote unquote circumcised or mutilated, it's a permanent thing and it does damage to them. And that's one of the things that we just want to ignore. And the fact that like it's happening, it's widespread in the UK and shit like that, that's, again, it's like, never in the United States. If it starts happening, there needs to be a fucking crackdown. $5 from Theomical, who asks, do you think this might affect instances of rape in yaoi or yuri? Also, whisper Japan factoids in my ear, weep daddy. I'm not really sure if it would. I imagine the fact that at least outwardly the Japanese government's rebuffing what's being said, but you have to imagine that at some point there is a contingent of Japan that is social justice advocates. I've seen Japanese people on broadcasts and shit that just like word by word go down and recite the mantra of like Bay Area moralists. So there is social justice influence in Japan. And I would say that so long as it continues to be exported from the West, it will eventually affect the Japanese. You will see some kind of change in Japan over it, because when most people that are artists and writers and even game developers and the rest, they tend to lean left. And when all of your friends are fucking authoritarian dogmatists who hate free speech and want to abide by this insane ideology, eventually you're just going to have to fucking, you will change. You're not going to change, friends. Most people are just going to fucking bow down. So that it will eventually affect them. Please throw, Sam Petrit says, please throw the Philippines a bone here. This is what happens when a non-cuck nation deals with Muslims. I'm not actually sure what happened in the Philippines. I know that there was some story about them. I'd have to look it up. Let's see. Lord Belmont asks, have you seen that new Linda Saussure video where she's confronted about the terrible things that she said on Twitter, but responds to her accuser by saying that he's a fucking white male? That's what you have to expect. You have to understand that Linda Saussure is a fucking practicing Islamist. She is a full-throated agent for Islam in the West. She is attempting to Islamize the West, and she is going to use the tools that she knows that works to her advantage, and that's what that was. Whenever she's confronted, she's just going to then play either the race card or she's going to play the oppressed woman card. She knows what she's doing. She is an Islamist. I don't even know where she's from, but she should be deported back to it, in my opinion. Louis, Sai Brev asks, have I spent any time in Japan? No, I haven't. You trust me, if I spent some time in Japan, I'd mention that. Okay, we're updated with the chat. Pun Master Matthew asks, there was a thing in Detroit or Chicago about legalizing female genital mutilation because of suppressing religious freedom. I don't know if it was either one of those, but I can say that I did hear about that. There was some kind of push to do that in the name of religious freedom. Like I said on Twitter, I think that in the United States, if we import a decent amount of Muslims, period, if we bring them into this country, we are going to inevitably reach the crossroads where we are going to have to decide which civil liberty or which liberty or freedom will have to be curtailed. And it will either be religious liberty or all other civil liberties. You will have to choose. It is a binary. If we import a healthy number of Muslims. If we don't, it won't be an issue. But if we do, we will eventually reach that binary where we will have to choose. And it seems, if you look at the other nations, you can see which is being chosen in those nations. And by all accounts, it is all other civil liberties but religious freedom or religious quote-unquote liberty. And that's where and the issue is, and the reason why that is because the right wing cucks for their dogma. When push comes to shove, and I'm sorry for those of you that are listening to this that are conservative, I've seen it too many times, religious conservatives who are Christian will cuck for Islam when they know that their own religion is going to be impacted. They will cuck. Unfortunately, there's not enough fucking atheists like myself that are not fucking pussies. They will immediately they will defer to the sensibilities of the Islamists when confronted. Unfortunately, we're 3% of the population, not even in the United States, and out of that 3%, about 2.9% are fucking cucks. And when push comes to shove, they will just back down. I will not. I am an ardent secularist, and I stand by it, and I can defend it. Because I am not willing to abandon my civil liberties and the civil liberties of every person living here who's abiding by the law for the sake of fucking criminals and terrorists. I will not do that. So if one thing has to go, it's going to be religious liberty eventually. But it's only going to be contingent if we bring in Muslims. It'll never happen. If we go the next 1,000 years, we will never address the issue. Ever. We'll never cross the threshold because Christians in this country don't do shit. You know, there are Christian radicals in this country. They still are kind of an issue to some extent. I don't like the evangelicals. I don't like how they affect our politics. But they're not running around blowing up fucking pop star stadiums, okay? They're not doing crazy fucking shit like that. You know, maybe we have another Waco thing again. We have another cult thing. But we're not having what's going on in Europe, which is where we have an entire segment of the population that is nothing more than fifth columnists in the nation. Thankfully, the United States doesn't have that yet, but I'm going to tell you right now, and I hate to say this, I hate to sound like a fucking bigot, but I'm telling you right now, every single Muslim that comes into this country, in the way that we're doing it now, you're just increasing the percentage. You're increasing the likelihood of we reach that point where there's going to be a crackdown on civil liberties, and it's going to be the decision which. Every Muslim you bring in brings us closer to that threshold. Jesse Curly or Curl asks, Louis, do you love the Weimar Republic more than lollies? I mean, I have to say that the Weimar Republic was one of the things that I studied and when I was in college, and I found it to be incredibly frightening. And there are several issues that I talk about that frighten me, that makes me see similarities between the United States and the Weimar Republic. And corporatism, I would say, is near the top. That is near the top of my list of fears of, like, if the United States were to ever be put in the position where it could be comparable to the Weimar Republic, where it is so unstable, so fragile that it could collapse overnight or be taken over by essentially fascists. More so fascists than communists. I don't think the communists would be able to win in our system. I think it would be the fascists that would win or take power. And it will be a result of corporatism and a few other issues, but mainly that, where we will have eventually a economic fucking recession so bleak and so devastating that you will see us have unemployment levels comparable to that of Greece or something similar. And the political system will be so unresponsive, because it is corporatist in nature, that people will just take to the streets. And the government will respond by basically eliminating all civil liberties, cracking down, and then by that point it'll be too late. And you will see eventually some kind of breakdown where it will be comparable to the Weimar Republic. And, I fear that day. I fear the day that if it ever happens. And I can tell you that if we continue to go down the road of corporatism, it will happen. Period. It will happen. Because we will eventually have a recession that we will never bounce back from. And it will likely because of something Wall Street did. Some action they took, some fraud that they engaged in, something. And then that'll be it. And I can tell you, to those of you that are listening to this that are libertarian, it's not the issue of government, other than it's been infested by corporatists, and it is not something that can be solved by investigating the Federal Reserve or going back to the gold standard. That's not going to fucking do anything. That's not the issue. So I just wanted to say that, because I saw when people talk about, well, we could solve the issue by investigating the fucking Federal Reserve. It's like, okay, well, all that deals with it is inflation. That's all it deals with. The loans, the bailout that they gave to Wall Street, they paid it back. That's not the fucking issue. So it's kind of out of left field, but I thought I'd mention that. It bothers me. Scroll back down. So John Apocalypse asks, hey, Louis, does it feel to you that a lot of libertarians and conservatives are pro-corporatism? I would say that it depends on the libertarian. Libertarians seem to be all over the place on things. Conservatives, I would say, are unwitting allies of corporatists simply because they seem to find these wedge issues that they can't get past. For example, if you have a anti-gun Democrat against a pro-gun Christian Republican who's absolutely corrupt, the conservatives will vote in the Republican and never criticize the fact that he's bought, just because they are concerned about the gun issue. It seems that there are people on the right that are concerned about corruption, and especially if you phrase it in the position of globalism and the removal of American sovereignty and the issue of foreign influence and all that sort of thing. So there are conservatives that absolutely do care about corruption and influence and all the rest, and money and its presence in politics and the rest of that. But it seems as though that as it relates to massive corporations, monopolies, foreign influence through multinational corporations, there seems to just be a blank spot. So I wouldn't say that conservatives necessarily cuck to corporatists. Conservatives, from my position, seem to just have a blind spot to it. It doesn't really seem to faze them, from what I've experienced on my own, by engaging with them personally. And from what I've read, they just don't seem to understand the issue, and that's all I can say. They don't seem to care or understand the issue. Libertarians are a whole another issue. Libertarians seem, for whatever reason, to be in many ways willing allies of corporatists. because they think it will be beneficial for the economy generally and for the middle class, in essence, that it will lead to a more meritocratic system, even though it will be a more unfair system, a far, far, far more competitive system for workers and not for corporations. It imbues corporate America and multinational corporations to seize even more power and to become even larger. They don't seem to care about that. They seem to find that meritocratic. You know, if the big get bigger and the rich get richer, that's just the system working as intended. They don't seem to actually distinguish between crony capitalism and capitalism, with the exception of when the government is involved. So if there's bid fixing for government contracts, that's when the libertarians will care. But if you have, let's say, HSBC laundering money for a cartel, I've never heard one fucking libertarian ever give a shit about that. Ever, ever, ever. So they are, in some ways, cucks for corporatism. And I think it's because, unfortunately, their ideology conflicts with criticism against it. So if it involves the government, they will criticize it. If it doesn't, if it's just within the private sector, they will not criticize it. Again, if you're a libertarian and you're listening to this and you're saying, oh, I absolutely say this and I absolutely whatever. It's like, I'm just, from my own experience, you know what I mean? I'm not saying every libertarian, hashtag not all libertarians, but generally speaking, libertarians. You know, I almost voted for fucking Gary Johnson when I thought he was fucking sane. So I'm not here to say fuck libertarians. I'm just saying that, you know, if Gary Johnson won, or someone that was, you know, more sane than him, the corporatist issue would still be there. But it would still be there if you had, it'd still be there if Jill Stein won, if Gary won, if Trump, apparently, because he seems to be a cuck for it, won, or if Hillary absolutely would have won. You know, corporatism would still be the issue. So Timothy Riggs says in Super Chat, I've been a conservative my whole life. I would drop the attacks on the 10th and Second Amendment. I'd seriously consider switching sides. Absolutely, Tim. Absolutely, bro. You know, I can say that, at least in terms of the Second Amendment, you know, you and I are probably, you know, like-minded. I have tried to make the case with liberals for quite a while that the Second Amendment issue is a loser. It's only good in the inner city. And all that you need to do is switch from the position of saying this is a guns issue to this is a trafficking issue. We have a trafficking issue with illegal firearms. That's where we need to put the money. That's where we need to invest money in the ATF. And we're going to campaign on that. We're going to campaign on the regulation and the elimination of illegal firearms, getting into the hands of children, getting into the hands of criminals, getting into the hands of people in the inner cities that are going to kill each other. They're being used in crimes, and it's predominantly handguns. You know, we know the issue. We're going to pursue the issue. We're going to craft legislation for the issue of trafficking and illegal firearms, or we're going to curtail this issue as much as we can. And we respect the Second Amendment. This has nothing to do with it because these are illegal. If you want to pass... If we want to have a wedge issue to debate, I guess it would just be like on background checks and a registry or fucking whatever. You know, maybe some sort of change in the laws to bring some sort of continuity between the states, and because every state has different laws, and the federal government. You know, and that could lead to good things. Maybe we can make it easier for people to travel across states and into states with a firearm and not run into issues there, because I know that's a thing that people run into issues with. You know, they have to have a certain kind of license, and it has to be from a certain kind of state. If they want to go to another kind of state, and it becomes an issue, especially, and there are jobs where you have to conceal carry. And, you know, maybe that's a positive development that we can make out of it, where it can be bipartisan. But I do think that for the Democrats, it's a losing issue. But honestly, I think it's a way to gin up progressive votes, black votes, because again, blacks, I found that many black people really do care about the gun issue because they do experience a lot of crime. They do experience a lot of violence related to guns. And so I think that conservatives should say, let's, instead of saying, you know, I'm all in favor of the Second Amendment, fuck off, which I understand, I get it. but instead come back and say, no, what you mean to say is that you have an issue with illegal firearms. That's the issue. That's the issue. And just, again, say that over and over and over again. Don't say, I'm in favor of the Second Amendment, fuck off. Just say, no, it's the issue of illegal handguns. Illegal, illegal, illegal. Keyword illegal. That's the issue. It's trafficking. That's the issue. We need to empower the ATF. We need to go after them another way. This is the issue, not legal firearms. And just hash it out. Make the case. Stand by it. And say that it shouldn't be a partisan issue. And I appreciate the comment, Tim. I think that, if the Democrats were smart, but there is an angle. That's why they're doing it. There is an angle to it. They're raising money off of it. It's also to win votes. But I agree with you. I don't agree with the anti-gun sentiment that people have. So Average Shitlord asks, Louis, if you didn't already touch on this, what do you think the solution to radical Islamist attacks would be? So the issue is that I don't know what the NSA knows. I don't know what the CIA knows. I don't know what the FBI knows. I don't know what Homeland Security knows about these issues. The issue would be, what do they know? And, are there actually any plans that are currently in place to, at least in the United States, what plans do we have that are ongoing or in, taking place where they're setting them up to try to curtail Islamist attacks and Islamism spreading in the United States? And the issue would be that first you would have to address it in the public arena. You would first have to lay out so that people actually understand what's going on, and that's politically incorrect to do. And I don't see a lot of Republicans articulating this well. The issue is multifaceted, that you have jihadis, you have Islamists, and then you have religious fundamentalists. And the issue is going to be that the religious fundamentalists are a large group as it relates to the Muslim population, and that they ultimately do have sympathies for the other two groups, for the Islamists and the jihadists. That if they're not going to have sympathies for the jihadists, they're at least going to apologize for them or deny that that's quote-unquote true Islam. It's a natural reaction, if you are an especially religious person, to deny some lunatic fellow religious person as being actually that religion. It's pretty standard stuff. But in terms of plans, to get to the question at hand, I would actually, and I was thinking about this earlier, what actually would be the guidelines, but it would only be under the condition that it is actually like an ongoing threat. So I forget which country it was, maybe it was Hungary, that banned foreign money changing, which also affected the Catholic Church. That would be a good first step, is ban the influence of Wahhabist money, because that's where a lot of this is stemming from. Ban that influence from coming into the country. And you're also likely going to have to change the tax codes. You're also going to have to change the special rules that have been created by the, I forget what the agency is for taxing, just offhand, IRS. IRS has special rules about investigating or auditing religious institutions. You got to get rid of those. They should be the opposite end. They should be explicitly more investigative or harsher about investigating these organizations, because there seems to be a whole lot of fucking criminal activity as it relates to these religious organizations. So the fact that there's special rules giving them privilege of this notion of, oh, well, they're beyond the point of even charities, because these investigative rules these auditing rules don't even exist for charities. It's just religious institutions. And I think it should be the absolute opposite. I don't know why they're getting preferential treatment. It doesn't make any sense. But it's obviously something that was lobbied for once upon a time by Christians and is now being used and utilized by Islamists. So, again, it's going to be the question of, are the Christians going to let us do it? Well, and when are the atheists going to grow a spine? That's the other question. Because the leftists, I have no hope. They're fucking worthless. It's going to have to come from some sort of secular organization that's going to have to make some kind of real grassroots fucking push to make these changes. That or the right is going to have to unfuck itself, which I don't think is going to happen. Let's see. Let me scroll back down. Let's see. I know there's some more questions. Maybe I'll scroll up and see. Let me see here. Humongous for Senate asks, do you agree that we should have some type of surveillance on mosques that are notorious for spreading Islamism? Well, first you have to actually prove that that's actually emanating from there. And there seems to be far more surveillance in the UK that they have. They have evidence to say that there is like radicalism spreading from certain mosques, and they don't apparently do anything about it. But in my opinion, you know, the religious institutions, and it can't just be mosques because of the laws we have in place. We can't just, it can't just be mosques. So you have to have the ability in place to audit, to investigate, and to surveil religious institutions. And it doesn't mean that you do them all equally, obviously. But once you have that in place, you can do searches, you can do audits, you can do investigations on religious institutions, and it will likely be the mosques. And if you do find mosques that are disseminating anything that can actually fall within the boundaries of advocating for the overthrow of the government, then you just shut those organizations or religious institutions down. That would be my fine line. If they advocate for the overthrow of the government, shut them down. That's it. And the Muslims there can, or whomever, can congregate to another location, and if they say the same thing, shut that institution down as well. Because you have to understand that what this is a political organization that operates at the taxpayer's expense because they pay no fucking taxes and they have special auditing rules and all the rest, and they are actively working to overthrow the government. Not all, obviously. Many religious institutions don't do that, but if we are talking about, you know, the examples that we see, especially in the UK, it seems, you know, just close the organizations. That should be the only answer. If they are disseminating information and actively campaigning for the overthrow of the government, boom, close it down. Let's see here. And the reason why I say that, I know people are going to say that, oh, you know, some will say that's authoritarian, but the thing is that we already know where this leads. We already know where this type of extremism leads. It will inevitably lead to violent action. It will lead to action. So there is no argument to oppose this, to say that, oh, no, like we should just let it play out because this time it won't lead to violent action. No. Any religious institution that advocates and propagandizes to its own members that they should overthrow the government and take part in it, it should be shut down. You know, if the person that runs it, you know, what are the imams? If they just go their own way and whatever, or they stop doing it or whatever, you know, that's fine. You don't have to arrest them. But, you know, it's just a matter of, like, you know, the difference of when they can actually be brought up on charges. Or here's an example. Let's say an imam comes here, and it's a foreign national, and they're either here on a visa, they're here on a temporary, you know, stay or whatever. They can be here for however long, or if they just recently became a nationalized citizen, and they are advocating for the overthrow of the government, revoke citizenship, deport. So that would be something that I would support, because you shouldn't be brought into the country, just handed citizenship, and then immediately start calling for the overthrow of the government. So, as it relates to the citizens that are born here, they can say whatever stupid shit they want to, so long as they're not advocating immediate violence or targeting an individual calling for violence, something that would fall within the laws of, outside the boundaries of incitement and all the rest, where it would just be them being brought up on charges. That'd be the difference. If it's the same for someone that's a foreign national that's here, fucking deported, just out. But to those, the Constitution, that it applies to them, so long as they stay within the confines of the law, they're fine. They have the right to say fucking stupid shit. So Lord Belmont says, this story about Red Deer, Alberta, with Syrian refugee kids beating up non-Muslim kids in high school is infuriating, compounded with the CBC's take on it. Holy shit. Yeah, I mean, this is what I'm talking about. I take it you're Canadian, Lord Belmont. I can't speak to what's happening in Canada, but like I said, I've said it before, and I'll say it again, that my position on so-called refugees is zero. And, as it relates to Muslim immigrants, is few as possible. Maybe you don't ban necessarily, but as few as possible. In terms of refugees, zero. We're not obligated to take any. There's no reason to take any other than to virtue signal and to guarantee social strife and just crime and strife in general in these countries. Where are they going to stick them, as you've heard me say before, in poor cities like Buffalo, to just dump them and just leave them. Because Buffalo already has a Muslim population. If people didn't see it on Twitter, I was there. I think like a week ago. I was in the Muslim part of Buffalo, and there's some fucking scummy looking people there. Not everybody, obviously, but the young guys, the young men there, they look fucking scummy. So, yeah, I'm sure they're fine though. I'm sure they're fine. Perfectly nice gentlemen. Okay, let me see. No, I'm not supporting Trump. I'm not a Trump supporter. RPG Shaman says, help Lewis, I'm looking for Kyle's testicles, but I don't see anything. Good luck. The search continues. Will I support the Justice Democrats? No. Eventually I'll get to the video. I have the script somewhere on them. I never finished it. At some point I'll do a video on that. Let me see here. How long do you think it will be until there are large-scale protests? And this is Eggy McEggface. How long do you think it will be until there are large-scale protests against Islam in Europe? That's up to Europe to decide. I don't really know when. I would say it's definitely dependent on the country. And I would say that I'm pretty convinced at this point that it doesn't. I don't know. There's no body count that will be the threshold to when that happens for sure. I think that if it does happen, it will just be gradual. That enough people will be swayed to be against Islam, and you'll start to see more and more right-wing people rise to power and gain prominence. And if you have enough big attacks, I would say that that's likely going to eventually spark enough anger for people to actually start caring. And I would say that the more dead kids, the sooner that happens, because for whatever reason, people seem to judge dead children as some sort of real extreme to be concerned about, when it's like, adult or child, like a body's a body, and I don't understand why if it's an adult that dies, we can just sweep this under the fucking rug and not care. I don't know. It's just funny to me how, like, this attack in Manchester, like, this is when we need to fucking virtue signal. This is when we need to fucking go crazy about it. When it's like, okay, you know, this is no different to the fucking day-to-day in the fucking in Europe at this point. Okay, just because a bunch of kids die doesn't change the fact that this is regular there. Yeah, the fact that when an adult dies, it's like, oh, it's like just another fucking day. It's just a Tuesday. Some more adults got blown up or run over or whatever. So yeah, but I don't think I'm going to change that. So more kids that die, that's likely going to be a catalyst for change. All right, let me scroll down and catch up. We're not going to go for too much longer. So if you have any questions, okay, here's a question by Deadpool Sports 777. Hey, Louis, how serious do you take Antifa and their censorship-type actions? Do you see them as a potential threat to a true faction to fight against or something just to ignore and brush off? So I would say that I do take them somewhat seriously. I do think that they can be categorized as a domestic terrorist group because that they seem to engage in terroristic actions wherever they're present and whenever they're out on the streets. I would say that the police should take them a bit seriously, that they shouldn't be just ignored. They shouldn't be allowed to fight people. I would say that to the right-wing people typically that are out there protesting in them, although it's not always conservatives, don't start fights with them. I've seen that a few times where I saw at least one time where Base Stickman, as he's known, just flat out started a fucking fight. Flat out started a fight. And it's like, oh, this is the issue. You can't do that. I get it. Like, oh, we're out here getting our asses kicked and whatever. Well, it's like, okay, yeah, but you can't throw the first punch, because the way that this needs to work is Antifa shows up every single time, throws a punch, and then eventually it creates justification for the police to come in and crack down. And what you need is justification for the police to crack down hard enough where this doesn't happen anymore, where you have Antifa members being charged with serious crimes and potentially going to jail for a very serious, time period. And I would say that after enough people are locked up, that Antifa will just go away. I think that's how this will change, is that you have the police crack down and people get charged and they go away. And the people that need to be headhunted by the officials need to be the fucking leaders, like the people that Sargon has done videos on, those crazy fucking communist types that are leading and recruiting people for these movements. They show up and they are violent. Look for them, target them, wait for them to make a move, and fucking arrest them. Charge them and send them to fucking prison. They're there, they're violent. You can get them, you can bring them up on charges, target the leaders, put them in jail. It's not hard. I mean, it's not like taking people that are political activists and jailing them. It's like, no, these people are out there committing violent actions. Just prosecute them. It's not that hard. You don't have to grab some fucking, latte sipping dickhead on the street. Just look for the leaders. Target them. Christ, I don't know what's wrong with the fucking, the police forces in this country, the agencies. They can clean this up. I mean, they do. They've been targeting, and I saw a report by 2 outlets, including The Intercept. They've been going after the militia types, like the Bundys. They are going after them. They are going after them. And they're looking to get the guys at the top. They don't care about the guys at the bottom. They're looking to get the guys at the top of that militia movement and send them to jail for the rest of their fucking lives. That's what they're trying to do. Just do the exact same fucking thing with Antifa. Do that with Antifa. Do that with these communist groups. You know, it's a wonder if it's just not the political pressure in those individual states where they're present, that's why they don't do it. But these people, including the leaders, are fucking violent. The footage of it's all over the place. Just be there, wait for it to happen, arrest them, prosecute them, send them to jail. They're not going to be able to lead their fucking movement from a prison cell. They're not the mafia. So after that, it'll figure itself out. There won't be an issue. Okay. Gonzo Duke says Poll will just dox them all eventually. Well, that's going to be the thing. You know, if Poll wants to do something, and I'm not saying that Poll needs to do anything or anyone needs to do anything, but send that information to the FBI. You know, if you see some guy throwing a punch at a cop or something like that, and it's some Antifa member, take that information that you have, write an email, send it to the FBI. Say, I saw this guy, especially the people that have like fucking footage of them on the ground and shit, just send it to the FBI. Maybe they act on it, maybe they don't, but at least maybe it falls in a case file to somebody that's working on a case to bust these people. And eventually, if they do enough crazy shit, guys, it will happen. The FBI will roll in and they will fucking jail these people. They'll build a fucking case and they'll do it because the FBI, man, they don't give a shit. You know, once the order comes down of this is who we're after, this is what they're up to, and this is what we want to charge them on, and we want to put them in prison, those people will go to prison. They will. It's just a matter of how long and what evidence they can build to make the case to send them to prison, probably for the rest of their fucking lives. The FBI can do it. They just need the order to do it. Because all of these people engage in criminal activity. None of these activist groups are out there fucking operating on, you know, just pure ethical legal behavior. No, they break the law. Okay, I got a couple questions here. Kyle Neal asks, but governments are generally very ineffective at fighting and rooting out terrorists. The best way to defeat terrorist cells is usually for the general public to turn against them. I mean, the ideology, yes, but in terms of terror cells, I don't agree with that. I'm pretty sure that the government is somewhat effective at rooting out terrorism. That does happen. There are terrorist plots that are discovered and averted, and it's not been by, to my knowledge, just guys in the streets, you know, or people on a fucking show debating Islam, you know, and I'm pretty sure it's not them kicking in the door, arresting everyone. So I don't agree with that, but I understand what you're saying, and I do agree that people should be talking about the ideology, but they're not going to be the ones making the arrests. Chopped Onion asks, what would be the hypothetical in the UK, France, or Germany that you would support the American-Canadian intervention, military, political subversion, maybe send police to help curb crime? I mean, Germany has enough fucking money to figure out their own shit. France is mostly, from what I've seen, self-inflicted, and eventually they're just gonna. I mean, the fact that the one attack that I remember that was just unreal was that theater one. I don't remember if it was a bombing or a shooting. I don't remember what it was, but I just remember watching the footage of it and watching like images of all like the bodies being dragged out and shit. It was fucking insane, that theater attack. And I thought that was the moment. I figured, okay, the Charlie Hebdo thing was one thing, but there's enough fucking people that can just say, oh, they're racist, and then just dismiss it. But that theater shooting, I thought that was going to be it, but I was wrong, man. The fucking the self-hatred and the fucking lack of spine in France, man, it runs deep. Let me scroll down. Do I like Motorhead? I have listened to Motorhead, and I do like some of their music. Actually, oh no, I don't have it on my iTunes anymore. Yeah, there are some of their songs that I do like. Lewis, where do you think these Antifa leaders and recruiters are coming from primarily? From what I can tell, they come from radical activists that were alive during the 60s that grew up in state activists that are basically like either like Marxists or communists or whatever, and that they have recruited a new generation of activists or terrorists or however you want to say it, lunatics. So as far as I can tell, many of these people have been around for quite a while. It's just that now they're gaining a lot of traction because the professors are pretty sympathetic to their beliefs, and they are themselves lunatic Marxist ideologues. So unfortunately, I would say that you are going to continue to have fresh recruits so long as our universities are filled to the brim with fucking lunatic kids and indoctrinated kids, not just their fault. So I would say that first and foremost, the thing you need to do is defund the social sciences and kick out all of these fucking lunatic professors and get rid of these so-called departments and fields of study, so to say, that they call themselves that are not, like African American studies, women's studies, all that shit, cultural studies, even cultural anthropology is another department that is an issue. The social sciences in general, and I graduated with this, fucking bachelor's in political science, and I still say it, it's a fucking issue there. I had a professor that was an out-and-out social constructivist, said as much, talked about social constructivism and all that sort of thing. I mean, at the time, I didn't know what it meant, and now I know that guy was a fucking lunatic. And so he's got to go. He's got to go. They all got to go. They got to get the fun, and they got to get the fuck out. And I think that once that happens, you will see a quick shift. I think that you will see a lot more conservatives in universities, and you will see a lot more rational leftists. You will see rationality return to people on the left. Let's see here. Do you have any opinions on Tulsi Gabbard? And I've been sending a lot of the shit that Tulsi Gabbard tweets out and some of that stuff on her to Sargon. I would say that he likes her because she's not too regressive and that she's also cute or beautiful, I guess you could say, because she's older. I would say that she seems to be a progressive that's angling. I think she understands where the wind's blowing. And notice she doesn't seem to be following Bernie Sanders. She doesn't seem to be towing his line in the way that he's headed. And I think that she's angling to some degree to find a bigger position in the American politic, as it were. And she's smart to do so because, 1, she's a woman. 2, she's not white. 3, she's not a full regressive, but she's on the left. 4, she's not a corporatist from what I can see. 5, she's a Democrat, and she's been a Democrat forever. So she has everything that she needs to play all the angles to actually gain prominence and still meet all the criteria necessary, with the exception of being a sellout and a corporatist, to my knowledge. Maybe she isn't, I just don't know. But that's going to be the one angle that the Democratic Party and the establishment is going to come at her for, because she's not in the club, so to say. So, but everything else, any progressive that comes at her, it's just going to be boom, woman, bye. Boom, woman of color, bye. All those criticisms go out the window. And I think she's a Buddhist. Boom. So the religious angle goes out the fucking window. So she's got her bases covered when it comes to identity politics. And people are going to laugh in the comment section and say, like, oh, whatever. But no, that actually matters. It actually matters when it comes to the party and it comes to the politics. So she's very strong. And if she wanted to, she could gain a decent amount of prominence. But if she actually wants to make it to the mainstream, if she actually wants to make it big in the United States, she's got to get with the program that if you want to have any kind of play outside of the fucking utmost left-wing part of fucking San Francisco, you can't be a fucking racist. You can't say anti-white shit. You have to recognize hypocrisy when it's there. So if you have a fucking white guy that's being discriminated against in favor of a black guy, you have to recognize it. It still means you could say, like, oh, black people need a handout or whatever, but you actually have to recognize the hypocrisy. People have that expectation at this point. It's demanded. So you have to do it. And if she does that, if she positions herself well enough and she doesn't do what Hillary Clinton did, so all the shit that Hillary Clinton did, the anti-gun stuff and all the rest, I'm super pro-gay despite the fact that I wasn't once in. It's fucking in the laws now, so it doesn't even matter that you're pro-whatever. If she doesn't follow that line, which she doesn't seem to be doing, she could become a mainstream fucking politician and actually gain the recognition that Elizabeth Warren used to have. Elizabeth Warren used to be widely recognized, widely reported on, and widely regarded, and she has diminished quite a bit. And Bernie Sanders seemed to overtake her quite a bit. And now with Bernie seems to be losing a decent amount of his muster. He's trying to do something, but it's not working. And I would say that if she comes to the front and she doesn't follow what they did, then she will be the successful progressive. But she has to learn. She has to recognize that as it comes, or as it relates to efficacy in politics, ideological baggage means less than being able to win. Winning should always come before ideological baggage. The only exception would be the ethics of, being corrupt or being dishonest in a way that is, in favor of something that is going to subvert your constituency. It's okay for a politician to lie about something so long as they're not lying about something that will directly impact their constituency, or it's about not being a fucking corrupt piece of shit. So long as she abides by the ethics, she needs to put winning above all. And if she does do that, she will win, and she will become a mainstream candidate. And we'll just have to see what happens. But Sargon has a lot of hope in her, or some hope, I should say. I can recognize her as someone that's smart and playing her cards very well, and has the potential, because of the identity politics angle, where don't bring it up, don't mention it. If someone mentions it, then you just say, I'm not here to talk about that. But if someone says, oh, whatever about, how would you know? It's like, well, you can't play that card with me because I already am not white. I already am a religious minority. I already am a woman. So like the shit they would come at her for, it doesn't work. You can't call her sexist. You can't call her a Tulsi bro. It doesn't work that way. Maybe they will. Maybe they will use the Tulsi bro thing like they did with Bernie. But it won't be anywhere near as effective. It just won't work. And like I said, so she could, if she played her cards well, she could do very well. I actually lost the screen. Okay. Yeah, I'll take a few more questions, but we'll probably have to wrap this up fairly soon because I have to finish my report for today. Yes, indeed, this stream is still going on. Mr. Jackson Scales asked, do you visit Japan? Where in Japan would you like to visit? I don't know. Probably, I mean, people will probably say, let's go to Tokyo or go to one of the, the more known cities, or the cities that relate to otaku shit or whatever. But I'd honestly like to see a little bit of the Japanese countryside, just because I would figure that most people wouldn't go there and it'd be a lot more laid back. The issue is I don't speak the fucking language at all. and you're going to be in a nation where outside of a handful of people, you're not going to really encounter too many people that know English. Do you do I? This is asked by Austin. Do you suck at your job? I would say that I'm pretty green because I'm new to it, even though I've been doing it for a couple of years. But I don't think I suck at my job. I'm just not as effective as other people. But it's also because I don't really like my job. Timothy Briggs says, I'm glad you've done a lot of streams recently, man. It's gotten me back into your channel, even though we're on opposite sides a lot. I like that you present your ideas reasonably. You know what, Tim? You conservative, you right-wing piece of shit. Fucking unsubscribe from me. Fuck you, man. I hate you. I hate you. You gave me $5 or whatever. I'm fucking keeping that motherfucker. Fuck off, you right-wing, alt-right piece of shit. The shitlord hope you get triggered says, Lewis, how long do you think it would take to dispel the SJW ideology from the Bay Area of California? I mean, maybe if a nuke goes off, I mean, maybe that'll right that issue. It'll still impact the rest of the state because it's just so through and throughout that fucking state. I had somebody contact me recently saying that I was fucking wrong, and then I had someone immediately contact me who's from California. Then I had somebody else contact me who lives in like the country, the more rural part of California, and say that I'm absolutely right about every word that I say about the cities in California. So it's a bit odd. I have people from the inner city saying I'm wrong, I have people on the rural part saying I'm absolutely right, and it's a nightmare. But it does emanate from California. I don't know what people want me to say, okay? Like, New York City's fucking bad, but they're taking their fucking, the playbook is coming from fucking California. They're not pioneering in New York City on anything. And if they are, point to one thing. Point to one. Okay. Lord Belmont asks, serious question, would you recommend your job to anyone? To find my job interesting, or I guess worthwhile, you have to be a certain kind of person. My boss has been an investigator for quite a long time. He is a dishonored cop, I guess you could say. He got fired as a cop, became an investigator, and has been very good at it. He's very, very good at what he does. But like I said, it takes a certain kind of person. You have to be fine with lying to people. You have to be fine with being in incredibly awkward situations. Basically, if like you have to play every angle and be like the scumbag fucker that you would see in movies. If you want to get somewhere, maybe you go in there and you're not supposed to be there. You go in a back room of let's say a supermarket. You're following some guy, and you can't get an angle on him. He's lifting up a bag of dog food, and you want to get an angle, but you can't get it. So you walk in a back room where you're not supposed to be. That way you can sit up and good footage of him doing it. You're not supposed to be there. And again, it's an awkward situation. You're trying to film someone in public and surveil them in public. And it's super fucking stressful and awkward. And it's basically, if you don't have that in you, if you don't give a shit about being in a social setting or in a public setting, if you don't give a shit about asking people questions where you basically put pressure on them to get information, you have to do that every once in a while, where you're talking to a neighbor or someone that knows the person that you're investigating. You may actually have to put pressure on them and angle just to get information out of them. I usually don't do it. I usually just say like, okay, thanks for talking to me, and just fucking let it go. But my boss would do it. He fucking puts pressure on people and lays into them and says, well, I'm going to be here anyways, or I'll be back here tomorrow, and I'll knock on your door and I'll ask you the same question again because I need to know. And it's just like, again, he's not a cop, but it's like he presents himself in a way that he basically tries to intimidate people. and have the conversation then and there to get the information out of them. Because a lot of people will know a lot of shit about their neighbors. They'll know a lot of shit. And I can only tell you that, I've had people, by talking to them, tell me information about these people. Like, yeah, every morning he comes outside, he gets in his car, he takes off, and he rips out of there, and it's probably like 7:30 a.m. every morning. It bothers me. I can't stand it. And I don't really know where he works. And then it's like, okay, well, that just begs the question. Okay, you just say he works. Okay, where does he work? And then you got to ask the follow-up question. Well, where does he work? Well, I don't really know where he works. I don't really know. I know my wife talked about it. Well, where is she? Can I talk with her? Well, no, she's not home. Well, can you call her? Shit like that. Like, you have to continue to follow up with these people and pressure them and push them to give you this information. Because, if you get that fucking information, basically, if you can get a neighbor to tell you where this guy works or if he's working, find out where he is. And I had this happen to me where I found out from a neighbor where someone works. I followed them to work. I recorded them working. And that guy had to repay at least $250,000. Okay, that guy was on comp for years and was working, I think, at a cement plant. He had to pay back 250 grand. He's not going to do it. He's going to spend the rest of his fucking life working, paying that debt back to this insurance company. So, that company, the insurance company, doesn't give a fuck. They don't give a shit if you got to kick down doors. They don't give a fuck what you do. So long as you don't report it and no one finds out about it, do whatever the fuck you got to do to get this information. The only times where they will tell you specifically not to do something will be something that they've already had to adjudicate in court, or is something that's been adjudicated, because there's been a ton of shit that's come from the Supreme Court about what private investigators are allowed to do. And so all that shit you got to abide by. But outside of that, they don't give a fuck. They want the information. And the thing is too, right? We're talking about paying somebody a wage, and a lot of times it's not a lot, but some guys it is, where you're paying them a wage for potentially, like, let's say 30 years. A guy that I'm investigating shortly is 26 years old, same age as me, and he's been out on comp for like 3 years. And they've investigated the shit out of him because they want him cut off, because they know that likely he's probably exaggerating or fraudulent, but also this is a guy they're going to be paying potentially for the rest of their for the rest of his fucking life, and he's 26. So they want him gone, and they don't give a shit. They for the peanuts they pay us, they could potentially save $1 million or so. Again, we're talking about somebody that's going to be out on comp or on half comp or whatever, half disability for the rest of their fucking life. And yeah, they don't give a shit, man. They're crazy. And it also depends on where it's coming from. I can't really name any names, but I can tell you that there's a specific entity for New York, and they're fucking nuts, man. They don't give a fuck, man. Like, most of the companies will say, like, okay, don't talk to the person who you're investigating. Don't talk to their immediate family. Don't do this. Don't do that. There's this one for New York specifically that is fucking mental. They don't give a shit. They don't want, they obviously don't want you to approach the person and obviously identify yourself as an investigator, but they don't give a shit. You can lie. You can say you can lie about whoever the fuck you are. They just want information. They want to know it now. They want to know everyone's guilty. They want to know it. And there's a bit of irony to it, but I can't get into it. But it's like there are no rules for this one entity. They don't fucking care at all. They just want results. And my company, they do everything that they can to satisfy this individual client, because they get big fucking money from this client because they know our company, and the company gets results because they have experienced investigators, and the investigators, like my boss, man, they're fucking like sociopaths. And he's a nice guy. I don't want to badmouth him, but it's like he doesn't give a fuck. The shit that he's told me, it's unbelievable. So if you're very much a mercenary type and you don't mind working horrible hours for low pay, this job's for you. Deadpool or Deadpool Sports 777 asks, Louis, if you had to compare yourself to a current outspoken feminist, basically the Louis Le Vau of feminism, who would you say that is? I don't really watch enough feminists to really be aware of what they do. I don't really know that there are any feminists like me exactly. I'm sure that there are some that engage with their audience in that and that are somewhat level-headed and plain spoken, I imagine. But I really don't think that there are any like me that I personally probably wouldn't find insufferable. You know what I mean? Like I can only imagine what the opposite end for this whole division would be. That would be my equivalent to it. I would imagine that I would find them to be the most insufferable person ever. Uh, let me see here. All right, well, we'll probably have to wrap this up because we're getting to midnight, and I still gotta write that report. I probably should have ended this already, but it's all right. I don't have to wake up too early tomorrow. Okay, so let's just do some last few questions here, and we'll end the stream. So you don't have an angle, huh? Asks, people can have people can he when they are being watched though. My father was legitimately injured on comp and would just wave to them when they're hanging around. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. My father was injured and on comp, and I don't think he was investigated and he was on it for about not a full year, but about like 10 months till he went back to he couldn't go back to his previous uh, field, so he had to move on to another. But I know people that have been investigated that were innocent, and I have investigated people that were innocent. And unfortunately, what happens is that certain red flags pop up, and an adjuster at an insurance company looks at it and they go, "Okay, let's approve 4,000 for surveillance on this case, and let's see what we can dig up." And they just want to see if there's anything there. Usually, they want to see if there's any angle they can work on, especially if there's any kind of litigation going on, if there's any kind of disagreement or any kind of shit that's about to happen in court. That's usually going to up people's chances of getting investigated, especially if you've been on it for over a year. After a year, especially 2, you're likely going to get investigated, even if you are severely injured or whatever. You are going to get investigated because they don't know. They don't know until they look into it. They can do things where they have these independent examinations where they can have a doctor that many people find to be kind of just like a corporate stooge take a look at you and examine you and see what they can find and report that information directly back to the insurance company. But what they need is, in essence, you either directly exaggerating what your issue is or working. Those are typically the one and the two that they need. They need you lying, saying that you're not working, or you are exaggerating your claim. Because either is an angle they can work with, and they can use it to dismiss the claim. And once that happens, it's over. That they're done, and they close the case, and it's done with. And they save a lot of fucking money. Or in certain cases when they are feeling vindictive, which is, from my experience, not often. But if they do feel vindictive, they will prosecute you. They will take that case and they will bring it to the authorities, and they will say, this guy or this person said that they had this disability. They bilked us for this amount of money. We want you to prosecute them for fraud, and we'll provide evidence. And then the prosecutor of that area will then have to decide whether they have enough evidence to bring about charges, and often they will because they've been investigated professionally already. So they will then pursue charges against that person. But more often than not, insurance companies will just let it go. They'll just say, okay, we're going to sue you in civil court, and you owe us this amount of money, and we want it back as soon as possible. That's usually the route they go, from my experience. Uh, Derek asks, thick or thin? And I didn't even know thin was a choice, but I'm definitely going to choose thin. And so yeah, let's wrap this up here. So last few questions here, guys. Let's wrap it up. Mr. Jackson Scales asks, Lewis, were you ever scared while working? Bro, you have no fucking clue. You have no fucking clue. The fucking scumbags that I've investigated. I have investigated legitimate fucking just scumbag criminals, like professional fucking criminals. I've investigated at a minimum 4 or 5 full-blown, outright, no question fucking drug dealers. I'm trying to remember if all of them, I think one was in Rochester and the other 4 were in Buffalo. Or maybe 2 were in Rochester. No, one was in Syracuse, one was in Rochester, the rest were in fucking Buffalo, and they were bona fide fucking criminals. And those were scary experiences. Every one of them was scary. You know, I've investigated some scary fucking people. I've concealed carry on a few cases. Every single well, I probably shouldn't name that. A certain type of no, I guess I can't name it. Somebody that doesn't work in the private sector that keeps other criminals at bay, or contains criminals, let's say. I've investigated a bunch of those kind of people, and every single one of them is fucking shady. Every single one. My boss has been beaten up by those people before, more than once. It's literally one of the most scary people to investigate out there. I've investigated them every single time. It's been fucking shady. Every single time they've been aware of them being investigated. It's just a terrible experience. So and that's all I'll say on it. But and there's also just a horrific irony with it as well. But I've investigated criminals before, and they're typically the scary ones to investigate, but also those other kind of people. They're also scary to investigate because they see themselves as above the law, and they will get violent with you because they think they have that right. And they are always aware of being investigated because I think, honestly, it's a thing with those kind of people. They seem to have this kind of racket set up in their job where they do this. They go on comp and have a fraudulent claim. But that's all I'll say on it because I don't want to talk too much about it because my job has a big fat non-disclosure agreement. Lord Bellman asked about a fat woman I was following, and I had that southern accent. I don't even remember. I remember that video, but I don't really remember that case. You got to understand, dude. I have a million fucking cases under my belt at this point, and that's not me bragging. That's just this fucking job. No, I've never shot someone. No. Yes. Psycho Hands asks, have you crossed the mafia in your job? And the answer is yes. I've investigated 2 people. One I suspected was ex-mafia. The other one was 100% a fucking mobster. 100 fucking percent a mobster. And I knew this because we have a certain file where it says basically your associates, like who you're connected with, and if there's any red flags that you're connected with fucking criminals. And there was just this fucking avalanche of fucking people that this guy was connected to that were all fucking ex-mafioso. So it's like, okay, this guy is definitely a fucking mobster. He had been to prison. He was an ex-felon. He was out on comp. He was like fucking 70-something years old. He was definitely a fucking mobster even then, because he still ran his own business and he had all these fucking different locations. It was shady as shit. Yeah, that guy was definitely ex-mafioso, or at least maybe he's still, although he's old as shit, you know, but I couldn't believe it. You know, I open the file, I'm looking through the names, and usually it's just like, okay, your family members, your former neighbors, maybe some friends or whatever, ex-roommates, and it's real fucking boring. There's no there. And then this one I open, and it's just like, brrr, just a red flag. And I'm like, looking through all these names, they're all Italian. They all ended a vowel. I'm like, okay, and I started looking up some of the names, because I have a database that I can access where you can look up former felons, because you'll look up the names and then find the numbers and of like the numbers like they wear on their backs or whatever, their felon numbers or whatever they're called. And they were coming back. There's hits. All these people were former felons, and it's like, okay, these are all fucking mobsters. They're all Italian. They're all mobsters. And I don't find it a coincidence that this dude has all these fucking connections with all these fucking ex-criminals. So it's like, okay, I guess and I stayed way back that day. I was very conservative on that fucking case, because the last thing that I need is some fucking, you know, some junior like guy, you know, from The Sopranos, knowing who the fuck I am. I mean, the guy lived in Buffalo. So I was like, I'm definitely staying back on this case. But I did get video. I got video of him and everything. So I actually did pretty well on that case. But yeah, that was a fucking scary one. Jason Leonardo asks in the super chat, how do I get your job so we can become partners and fight crime together? Look on Indeed or whatever. I know my company is constantly fucking hiring. So if you want my job that bad, you know, you can find it. It's out there. The Alpha Frag asks, how close have you come to dying? I would say the closest I came to dying that comes to mind is the time I got chased by a criminal. I think it was either Syracuse or Rochester. I think it was closer to Syracuse. I was in the middle of nowhere, and I found, it was like I was trying to investigate the guy's daughter. I think I've already talked about this before. I was investigating the daughter, but the father, who was running a chop shop, just like I passed by the place like twice, and he basically chased me for like 60 miles. I basically he eventually, and the whole time he was basically making threats, like insinuating that he was going to kill me and shit. So that was scary. I've also investigated 2 drug dealers that were scary. I had one drug dealer that came. It's something like out of a movie. I made the mistake. I was there with another investigator, and he clued me in that this guy was a drug dealer. And I was in the parking lot or in his apartment complex, and I literally, like, he had all these different cars that he would use. He had like a couple new cars and a couple old cars. He probably had like 8 cars in total in that lot that were all his. And he came down from his apartment, and I got tipped off, and I was on the wireless or the handless heads, or not the headset, but the hands-free thing service in your car for calling people. And he basically he came down to the parking lot, and I basically was on the phone with the other investigator. He was looking around because he was aware that he's being surveilled, and he basically walked alongside my fucking Jeep, and I swear to God this is true, okay? And I hung up the phone because I basically didn't want to hear, I didn't want him to hear any noise. But the thing is that when it hung up, it said call ended. And I swear to fucking God, he's right next to my fucking door. He turned and he looked right fucking at me. And he stared into the vehicle, and him and I met eyes, and I was like, holy fucking shit, like, this guy's a fucking drug dealer. He's a fucking criminal. And he basically stared, he just stared dead ass at me for like a solid 6 seconds, and then just walked away, got in his car, and took off. And and he basically, what he did was he just drove around the immediate area in a big circle over and over and over again until finally the other investigator and I basically said we have to break off because he knows he's being surveilled. So we were compromised in that case because he figured it out that he's being investigated. He knew already. He knew. Someone must have tipped him off because he was looking around the lot. But yeah, that was a fucking scary experience because that guy was a bona fide fucking drug dealer. And I guarantee that, you know, if we were in a more secluded setting, and I can get to another story, which that was the case, but if we were in a secluded setting, that guy could have fucking shot me. He could have just pulled out a gun, put the fucking my window and shot me in the face and killed me. You know, I could have died. So on that case, we didn't get it again because we got compromised. So they put somebody else on it later on. But you know, that was a scary one for sure. I would say that the guy chasing me was a bit scarier, but that was definitely a scary experience. The one of the worst that I had was also in Buffalo, and it was another drug dealer. I also had a bad experience with that other job that I mentioned before that's not in the private sector. That I had a scary experience there, but I won't talk about that. But the one I can talk about was another drug dealer in Buffalo where he lived in a more secluded part of Buffalo. It was on a really, really snowy day. There was nobody around, absolutely nobody. It was in one of the bad parts of the black part of Buffalo. So we're talking about in the deep hood. There's no one around. I realized that there's a park in between his house and another street. So I basically set up on the other side of this park, and I only have like a little chain link fence between us, but it's a good distance apart. Okay, so we're talking about a block away, but there's a park in the middle. So I clock that there's a Jeep just down the street from his house where he's living. I think it was his girlfriend under her name. So we managed to figure out where he was living despite his name not being in the house. I run the plate on the Jeep, and he owned a Jeep. It was his. It comes back to him. So basically, I call that in, and I say, okay, I got evidence that this guy's living here, so we're going to set up here. And so I do all the stuff that I have to basically clarify that the email is going to get sent to the client to say, okay, we know where this guy lives. We know what he drives. Now we can just set up from now on. So hours pass, and it's snowing. It's super cold. It's calm. There's nobody around. Nobody. No cars. No nothing. It's just deserted, the entire area. This old woman comes out of her house, and she's like a good 4 or 5 houses away from where I'm parked on the street. She comes out, doesn't look at me, doesn't acknowledge me, and I figure, okay, she's just some old lady. She doesn't see me or nothing. I'm good. Walks down the sidewalk, crosses the park despite the snow, immediately goes into that guy's house. And so that's when I realize something's up, because that's weird. That doesn't happen. It's snowy. This entire area is deserted. Some old lady comes out of her house, crosses the street, goes in this guy's house. Something's up. So then an older guy comes out. She comes out. The older guy starts shoveling the driveway, and they keep talking. Then a young girl comes out. Again, another sign, something's wrong. It's probably the guy's girlfriend. Something's up. But again, it's the decision of, do I stay or do I break off? And if I break off, I have to have a damn good excuse why I'm leaving. So what happens is that the young guy, the guy I'm after, finally comes out, talks with the old lady, talks with the older guy, which is probably his father, or maybe the girlfriend's father or uncle or somebody. And talks to the girlfriend. They're all outside. I'm getting footage of that. And immediately they all look in my direction. And that's when I know, okay, I'm done. They got me. They fucking got me. But I don't know. The young guy, the guy I'm after, gets in his Jeep. And the way that I know that this guy's a drug dealer is he lives in some shithole in the middle of Buffalo, and he's driving, it was a Rogue, a brand new Rogue, which is way more expensive than mine. It has custom rims on it. So we're talking about a fully decked out new vehicle that's customized in the middle of the fucking hood. This guy's the guy's a fucking drug dealer, and he's on a workers' comp, so he's not working. He's a fucking drug dealer. So he comes flying the fuck around, like drives down the road at full speed, and I know, okay, this guy's coming to my direction. So I back up, turn around, and he comes whipping around the road, flying down the fucking road at me. And you see like the snow flying behind him. I'm like, all right, I'm fucking out of here. I'm compromised. He knows I'm an investigator. I got to get the fuck out of here, because there's no cops around. There's no cops around, and I don't have a fucking gun. And this guy's a drug dealer, and he's coming my way. So I got the fuck out of there, man. I bolted. I backed out, turned around, bolted down the street, made a right. I drove probably a mile. And again, this is thick snow, but I had 4-wheel drive. I was probably doing about 70 to get the fuck away from this guy. So I drove to downtown Buffalo, and in downtown Buffalo, there's this I forget what they're called, but it's basically a circle in the street. You know, the street's a circle. I forget the name, roundabout, and it's a big roundabout, and it's like basically the center of Buffalo. It's right where town hall is, or the town hall, where the city hall is. So, and there's a fuckload of police there, 24/7, a fuckload of cops. So what I did was I drove down there and I just went around the roundabout over and over and over again and just made absolutely sure that he didn't follow me. And he hadn't. I lost him. And I just drove. I probably drove around that roundabout like 20 times. I mean, again, like I might sound like a pussy, but like it's like you have to understand that this guy is a drug dealer, and we were in an area which was in his turf where he doesn't give a fuck. He would have absolutely shot me if I had not moved, if I have not driven away. He would have absolutely shot me. So I basically said everything that happened in the case file or in my report and said, like, listen, all this shit happened. This guy's a drug dealer. Well, I didn't say that in the report, but I told my case manager, and they basically, you can't put certain things in the report that are like that. You can't say those kind of things. And I even got criticized when that guy chased me. And I think it was Syracuse or Rochester. When the guy chased me, they had to edit my report, and they got mad at me that I included certain things because they don't want certain things getting back to the client. And it's the way that it works is that you basically have the case manager call the client and say, okay, listen, this guy's a fucking criminal. He did X to our investigator. Like, you know, we're not going to put it in the report, but, you know, if you basically, they'll try to either angle it that they want more money so that they can put a more senior investigator on it, or they put two. But it's basically, it becomes hazard paid for the company. And as far as I know, with that case that I worked, they haven't actually given it to anyone since then, which I think says something, despite the fact that this guy is very possibly just bullshitting. You know, I doubt that this drug dealer got an honest job just to get hurt, or you know, to get hurt and to, you know, become a drug dealer. I'm pretty sure he was always a drug dealer just looking for more money. He's hardly the only drug dealer on workers' comp. But yeah, I would say that that was my most scary experience, if I had to find one, because I came close to getting shot. Okay. I do have a pistol, and I do have a concealed carry permit. But you got to understand, I don't know who I'm rolling up on who's a drug dealer. You know, maybe if I had a better, if I had a more concealable pistol, you know, if I had a smaller, more compact pistol, maybe then it would be better. But again, like, I'm not gonna fucking get out of my car and square off with a fucking lunatic drug dealer who's coming to kill me. Somebody asks an automotive chop shop or a boiler room chop shop, and I'm not sure what you mean in terms of that difference. Crime story stream. I mean, I've told you pretty much the big ones. I mean, there's like an infinite number of stories that I can tell. Like I'm represented in this area, and if you're familiar with Trump, you've heard the name Congressman Chris Collins. He's a congressman in my area. He represents me, actually. I think he's a fucking retard, and he's also a corporatist, and he's also corrupt as shit, and I can prove that. But I've actually investigated somebody that he is very well acquainted with. I obviously can't say their name or anything, but it's somebody that's donated to him. It's someone that's worked on his campaign. It's somebody that he's very familiar with and has met with. And I've investigated that guy for fraud many times. So, you know, I could spend fucking 5 hours talking about the cases that I've worked that are fucking insane. Shonko says, I have a lack of quality plastic pussy. Where can I go to alleviate my shortage? I don't know where to play. What play Asia? J-List. All the plastic pussy you can ever need is at J-List. There you go. You should carry a katana around. I don't really know how effective that would be against a fucking gangster, and Buffalo is gonna fucking kill me. Okay, yeah, I have to end this, guys. It's gone on for too long. So I'll answer one last question. One question. And that's gonna be it. Because I gotta work on a report and go to bed. So that's gonna be it. I'd love to hear more stories about the misadventures of Louis Le Vau. Yeah. I mean, it really is like that. Oh man. All right, one question, one last question, and then we're ending the stream. I'm not even sure how long we've gone for. I think it's been like 2 hours and 15 minutes. Anything? I'm seeing some questions that I don't really care about. Hey, okay, so I guess this will be the final question. Is by Gaku. Hey Lewis, do you think you'll ever do fan meetups? I mean, I'm not even at the position of doing a Patreon at this point. I mean, fan meetups is like a whole other fucking ball game. I would say that, like, if this ever became my full-time thing, it would probably happen. Although it would probably be at, like, I would probably say if I did anything, it would be like panel shit at conventions. I wouldn't mind doing something like that. I've seen enough different people do those kind of things where I can imagine doing it myself if I ever had the audience for it. And you have no idea how much I've been pressuring Sargon to do that. I've said to Sargon he needs to go to go to VidCon, go to and it's definitely not just me. There's been plenty of people telling him he needs to do shit like that. But yeah, if I ever got big enough, if I did this full time, I would basically put pressure on Sargon to do a panel at a convention, and I would try to put myself on that. And I think it could happen. I think I could talk him into putting myself on that panel. But it's basically, it depends on my free time, because I couldn't do it now. I couldn't do it. I don't even have enough time to fucking spend time with my fucking family and friends. So it's just not going to happen now. But if this ever was my real job, so to say, or if it ever dominated more of my time, then that could possibly happen. But as it currently is right now, it's just not going to happen. I pressured Sargon to go on Drama Alert. He's absolutely refused. I've pressured Sargon to go on Alex Jones's show, and he just keeps basically saying, like, "Oh yeah, I'll do it," but I already know, like, he won't do it. He's just and me, like, yeah, okay, I'll get to it. If I have ever investigated a weeb, I can actually tell you a story about a young guy that I investigated that was an incredibly fucking sad story, but I won't. I won't save it. Maybe I'll save it for another time, but it was definitely a fucking sad case. Have I ever considered playing Airsoft? I mean, I'm not like 16 anymore, so no. All right, so that's where we're gonna end it. All right, thanks for sticking along with me. Be sure to click the affiliate links and all that bullshit. I'll be trying to do some work. My job's kind of really interfering with that. My week has kind of changed for the worse because they've been adding some cases on that are not good. So I'm kind of going to be delayed in what I can do, but I'll be working on that shit regardless, and I'll be sure to try to update. I know I have to release some videos. I actually have some videos on, I have a video on mines, and I got some shit on my secondary channel I got to release and put up, and I got to put some links and some descriptions that I haven't done just yet, and probably including this one as well. So thanks for stopping by, and I'm glad to have everyone here. I just hit 10K. Very glad for that. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll be sure to do something similar in the future.